Hello, everyone. Yeah, just going to, by means of a quick introduction, thank you very much already to the MC for doing so. But yeah, I'm Robbie Cochrane. I am a co-founder of ChainGuardians, ChainBoost, and Cryptoverse. So 3 projects, all interconnected via NFTs and one governance token, but all having their own kind of individual, theses and their own individual business models. But mainly today, I didn't want to necessarily talk too much about the projects directly, because that would probably bore you all to death and maybe bore me to death as well. But the best thing to do is, if you want to learn more about us, is to come check us out. We have a funky little booth with some cool anime characters just out there to the left. I have to confess, I got to about 75% of the way through this presentation, and what I realized is I didn't know what the hell I was trying to say. But it was too close in the day to basically change it, so you'll have to bear with me. So I thought it was probably useful to actually, present a slide which talks about the purpose of what I'm actually presenting here. So first of all, I wanted to basically define with you all in the audience what the F is a metaverse. It's actually a title that I have to admit I've stolen from our chief marketing officer. We do a podcast called, Making a Metaverse, and the first topic is WTF is a Metaverse. Then I wanted to look really smart in front of you all and talk about philosophical thought and apply that to the metaverse. It kind of links to my background, and I think it's really prominent when we think about what a metaverse is and where it comes from. And then finally, I wanted to link it to the product that we are building as we are making a metaverse, which is called Cryptoverse. So that's the purpose of this presentation. I hope you can bear with me through it all, and I hope that you engage and that you actually kind of put your hands up when I ask you to, because if you don't, I don't know what I'm going to do. So first of all, as having a history as an English teacher, that's my previous life, I always like to start with the words themselves. So if we look at the word meta and where that comes from, it actually comes from the word beyond. There's a fairly technical, more in-depth analysis here of the etymology of the word meta, but I won't come into. We're thinking about beyond here for meta. And then if we connect to the kind of suffix of the word metaverse, it actually comes from, the fictional universe in which the series Firefly was set, but we won't get too much into that. The one that we're interested in is the clipping of the word universe. So together we kind of get this idea of something beyond the universe. If you Google what a metaverse is, it will tell you that in futurism and science fiction, the metaverse is a hypothetical iteration of the internet as a single, universal, and immersive virtual world that is facilitated by the use of virtual reality and augmented reality headsets. In colloquial use, a metaverse is a network of 3D virtual worlds focused on social connection. Absolute massive mouthful, right? I kind of like to summarize it as basically an alternate universe that exists on the internet, right? But the word metaverse has been absolutely kind of just abused in mainstream media to the point now where most people don't really have a clue what is meant when the word metaverse is used. So I'm going to try and define that with you all in the audience. I don't expect any of you to necessarily know factually or have because there is no right or wrong answer as to what an actual metaverse is. But I have really strong opinions, like I do about everything. So I'm hoping that you will kind of what's the word? Just work with me and humor me a little bit. So just by way of showing you of hands, if you would be so kind, I would just like you to basically put your hand up if you think the image that you see on screen is a metaverse. So Decentraland, some of you may know it, some of you may not. If you think it is a metaverse, would you put up your hand? Okay, a few. And if you think it is not a metaverse, put up your hand. Okay, interesting. One person standing out there. Okay. Decentraland, I would argue, is a metaverse. It enables people to have social connection and ownership of the world itself, and it's underpinned by Web3 technology. Roblox, hands up if you think it is a metaverse. Hands up if you think it is not a metaverse. Okay, and I guess this just goes to show we're getting a real mixture here, and it's understandable. I would argue Roblox is not a metaverse because it's centrally owned. It's owned by a single company, and they make all the decisions as to the world building that occurs. For me, a metaverse enables the users to be vital in the world-building decisions which occur. Sandbox. Hands up if you think it is a metaverse. Cool. And hands up if you think it is not a metaverse. We all think Sandbox is a metaverse. I'd agree. Again, I think the characteristics of the metaverse, virtual ownership, basically digital land, the users are creating the content, are all really key characteristics that I would argue is part of a metaverse. Fortnite. Hands up if you think it is a metaverse. Hands up if you think it is not a metaverse. Okay, there's more people getting involved as well, so thank you guys, that's great, it's really important. Yeah, absolutely, I totally agree. I would argue it's not a metaverse, but yet the mainstream media would have you probably believe otherwise. They would classify Fortnite as a metaverse. I would argue it is a centralized virtual world owned by one singular company, right? The users might be able to change their skins and have some impact, but they have no ownership. If Fortnite or Epic decide to just pull the game tomorrow, rest in peace. Everything goes with it. Crypto voxels. One of the earlier ones, a little bit more niche, but some of you may have heard of it. Hands up if you think this is a metaverse. No one knows this one, do they? One person, good man. Yeah, I'd agree. This one, again, is a metaverse. It's a similar principles as Decentraland and the Sandbox, right? Virtual ownership of land, provable kind of ownership of NFTs and so on. Second Life. Hands up if you've heard of Second Life. Yeah, quite a few people. That's good. Okay. Hands up if you think Second Life is a metaverse. A few people. Okay. Yeah. All right. Some people not sure. Hands up if you think it's not a metaverse. Okay, cool. Again, so 50-50, it just comes back to my point that I'm trying to make, is that so convoluted is the word metaverse that it's sometimes almost impossible to kind of argue one way or the other. I'd say Second Life is as close to a metaverse as can be without it being a metaverse, in the sense that it has all of the different characteristics, but the one key thing that is missing is that if the developers decide to turn Second Life off, that's it. There's no other users, there's no other owners of the world that can carry on with that. The IP, the world, it goes with them closing it off. Cryptoverse. Hands up if you've heard of Cryptoverse. Yeah, people from my company have, which is good, or from our company. Cryptoverse is the metaverse that we are focused on building. And essentially, you won't, if you don't know it, then you wouldn't know whether or not it is a metaverse. The suffix verse might give you some clues, but ultimately it has what I would say are all the key characteristics of a metaverse. Virtual ownership of land. It's got the ability to kind of have developers pick up from where another developer would leave off. It's got NFTs, it's got provable ownership and all of those, and it's got the representation of self through an avatar. Gets a bit harder now. I'm assuming everybody's heard of Zoom. If you haven't, I mean, I don't know how the hell you've come to a crypto conference. But hands up if you think Zoom is a metaverse. Yeah, you see, you guys are learning really fast. I like this. I like this crowd already. So hands up if it is not a metaverse. Yeah, cool. But the interesting thing is, I've had conversations on Zoom with people from really like top 10 protocols and projects that would argue that Zoom is a metaverse or part of the metaverse because it has interaction of self in digital form, and it's got arguably some characteristics of. For me, it's absolutely not. World of Warcraft. We all heard of World of Warcraft. If you haven't, you're way too kind of cultured, again, to be in crypto. You should have heard of World of Warcraft. Hands up if you think World of Warcraft's a metaverse. Hands up if it is not. Yeah, all right, awesome, yeah. So absolutely, again, totally agree. It's got loads of characteristics of a metaverse, but again, it's that key thing that is centrally owned by a company called Blizzard, right? And if they turn off the servers, then everything goes with it. Hands up if you recognize this image. Okay, cool. So the Matrix, right? Is the Matrix a metaverse? Hands up if you think it is. Hands up if you think it is not. A couple of brave people put hands up for not. I would say not. And the main reason is because the Matrix is owned by computer programs, right? It's a virtual simulation. It's made by them people. And if they shut the Matrix off, everything goes with it, right? So it's a centralized proprietary platform rather than a metaverse. So in summary, many projects will say we're a metaverse. They're not. I'd say bullshit, right? Many companies will have characteristics, but they won't necessarily be an actual metaverse as I would define it. Mainstream media has diluted the term metaverse so far that it can basically mean anything and anyone that's connected on the internet. I call this type of mainstream media journalism, churnalism. That comes from my background in basically learning about journalism. If you're interested in journalism, it's really you should definitely have a look at it. A guy called Nick Davies. He talks about how terms are just convoluted. So at or the metaverse is nothing new, and this is what I'm kind of trying to come back to here is that the metaverse has been on the tips of tongues of philosophers for a very long time, all the way from ancient Greece, all the way through to postmodernism. The swanky new term metaverse doesn't necessarily mean it is anything new. So going back to the words and the meanings, if we look at philosophy and we dissect the actual word itself, Phil comes from the ancient meaning of the word love, and Sophie comes from wisdom. The O is the interconnection, so we've got the love of wisdom, right? In terms of, whether or not we're talking about the metaverse and whether it is kind of a reality, and applying that philosophical thought to it, we first start with maybe a philosopher called Descartes, who basically questioned, am I real? And he came up with the answer, cogito ergo sum, which means I think, therefore I am. It's a really sort of intellectual way of saying, because I think, and I know I'm thinking, I therefore must exist, right? Pretty complex. All the way through to Plato, ancient Greek. If we're talking about and thinking about a metaverse as like a new thing, it's not. Plato came up with this concept of a metaverse for what he called the allegory of a cave, and he presented this theory that, imagine if you were born and all you could see was a projection of shadows onto a wall. By the time you came of age, there would be nobody and nothing in the world that would be able to convince you that what you was looking at is not real. Allah, what he's talking about here is an alternate reality, or a metaverse. This comes through to social semiotics and how he argues we interact with the world, is that we create meaning through essentially what he calls a signifier, which is an object, and then what we connote or what we think about when we see that object. So we might see an apple, which is the sign, and we think about, the red or the leaf or whatever, and then the mental connotation to that is that it's something fresh, it's healthy, and so on and so forth, and therefore that's where we create our meaning. This study of science is called semiotics. This is where it gets more important and prominent to the metaverse, is where we talk about Baudrillard. He's a postmodernist philosopher, really smart guy, French dude, actually pretty cool, and basically the whole thesis of The Matrix from the Wachowski brothers was centered upon Baudrillard's theories around the hyperreality. In his works, which was called Simulacra and Simulation, another really posh term, he argued that the hyperreality is a big problem for essentially developed worlds. And and the reason he argues is because that we are becoming so kind of immersed in different forms of reality, aka the metaverse, that we're unable to distinguish the two. So yeah, I mean, I guess why the hell have I just been talking to you all about philosophy for so long? It's a good question. And this is where I got to last time. I was like, why am I trying to say this? What I'm trying to get at is that the metaverse is presented as this really abstract thing. It's presented in so many different ways. It's like, it's this, it's that, it means this and that. But actually, in reality, it's nothing new. It's just talking about new forms of reality. What is new is that we finally have the technology to engage with the metaverse. We're finally able to create realities where it conforms to what Baudrillard calls the hyperreality, where we're actually going to be unable to differentiate the two. And that's what's really exciting about the metaverse. And this is really where I kind of want to wrap up what I'm saying in the matter, is that the metaverse is essentially just built upon different social constructs, different ethical layers of cultural values and models, all stemming from philosophy. And the idea of, if we think about how philosophical thought presents the metaverse, is that you really have a choice. You can make it a utopia or you can make it a dystopia. being good or bad. And the beauty of the metaverse is that we are the ones that are able to decide the direction of the type of reality that we want to be in, whether that be a positive or a negative experience. And therefore, you need to be wary of charlatans that would describe themselves as metaverses when they're a centralized proprietary platform, because they're the ones that control the rules, just like the architects do in the Matrix. They're the ones that monetize how they want. They're the ones that control your data. They're the ones that are feeding you your data feed and your SEO algorithm and content, right? So coming back to the actual final point that I wanted to get to is that as part of Cryptoverse, what we're building is we're building what your imagination is. We're building tools which empowers you to create the world that you want to be in as your alternative reality, as your metaverse, through presenting as many opportunities for social and gamification kind of experiences that you build. And you're the vital voice in determining, what are the ethics of this world? What are the cultural values? And we have the opportunity together to build a metaverse through the Cryptoverse, which is our product, and we believe, through your collective imaginations. So this is the end of my presentation. I hope you've been able to follow to some extent, and I hope you all come and check out cryptoverse.vip. Thank you.